So in terms of where we have been with negotiations, we had 10 days at the table negotiating. And through all of those days, we saw no movement on government's part on the majority of the issues that teachers have brought forward in negotiations. In October, we declared an impasse at the bargaining table, and after that, held a sanctions vote. And in that vote, 90% of teachers across Saskatchewan voted, and 95% of members voted in favor of taking action. This should have sent a very clear message to government that teachers are ready to take a stand to ensure that the experiences of students and teachers improve in schools all across the province over a longer term. From there, we moved into conciliation. We were able to get days relatively quickly early in December, and we met in that process for 5 days. We hope that this would provide a resolution to the process of negotiations, or at least bring the two sides closer together. I do want to share my thanks to the conciliation panel. They worked extremely hard to bring the two sides together as well. And it was clear that that was their goal through the entire time, the entire 5 days that we were meeting, was that they hoped they would be able to provide a resolution or to provide a path forward. And unfortunately, we're unable to move the process forward through conciliation. But through that process, we received a report earlier this week, which, as I shared earlier, that this report states that teachers can negotiate their working conditions. And as we have been talking about, these working conditions are our students' learning conditions. Children and their families deserve to know that they will have the support that is needed for them to thrive during their years in public education. Teachers have done everything possible to find a resolution to this process. We have taken any action that is possible to apply pressure on this government to come to the table in good faith, to try and have it not directly impact the school day. Unfortunately, government continues to refuse to make any agreement directly with teachers that provides improvements to schools and classrooms. Through this government's intransigence and changes that they made to legislation, teachers have no other option to take but to begin to impose sanctions. So today, we will be starting a 5-day countdown to our first action that will occur on Tuesday, January 16th, where teachers province-wide will hold a 1-day strike. We do not want to take this action. We can avoid taking this action. At any time, if government is willing to discuss longer-term commitments to address class complexity, teachers will return to the table. We need everyone's help to urge government to get back to the table and start bargaining in good faith. So please, I encourage everyone to contact your MLA. Let them know that they need to renew their mandate and make students, teachers, and public education a higher priority. As a parent and as a teacher, I know our kids here in Saskatchewan deserve the best. And right now, the government is leaving them behind. We can't wait any longer. We need commitments now. So again, thank you for joining us here today. I'd be happy to answer any of your questions. If you raise your hand, I'll call on you and you can unmute yourself. I see Alec.
Hi there, Samantha. So 1-day strike, this appears to be sort of the first salvo in ongoing breakdowns of negotiations. Starts as a 1-day strike. What happens after that? And I suppose why give the 5 days if 48 hours is all that you need to give to legally be in strike position?
That's a great question. And I guess the short answer to that question is that our goal is to get an agreement. Our goal isn't to take these actions. So yes, it is 1 day at this point. We are hoping that that 1 day is enough to get this government to move off of their opening positions within bargaining and get to the table and start addressing those big concerns that teachers have brought forward, specifically around class complexity. And same thing with the 5 days. We are giving plenty of notice because we are approaching this in good faith. We are approaching this in the hopes that government will take teachers seriously, take the process seriously, renew their mandate, and get back to the table so that we can avoid any action.
And then, sorry, my understanding of this might be I might just need a little bit of a lesson on this. You're able to go on strike for one day and then return to operations as normal on Wednesday?
That's correct, yes.
Got it. And you mentioned changes to legislation as well, making this sort of a last-ditch effort. Can you elaborate a little bit on what those changes are and why specifically they're putting you in this position?
Yeah, so in 2018, I believe it was that the legislation was changed that removed teachers' ability to apply for binding arbitration unilaterally. And so teachers have very little options within the bargaining process that they can take on their own. We have done, like I said, everything outside of bargaining to apply pressure or within the bargaining process, whether it was through Tell Them Tuesday and having members of the public reaching out to their MLAs and supporting teachers sharing these messages, our mini rallies that were actually massive across the province in many areas to, again, display to MLAs that teachers are serious about this and the public is serious about this, and we need to see better conditions in our classrooms so that students and teachers can be successful.
And I'm sorry, this is just the last one for me, and then I'll shut up and let somebody else have a chance here. Just from the conciliation report, one quote when it comes to classroom complexity and composition, specifically from the report, the board is not prepared to make a recommendation in that regard. It is far too complicated a matter involving legal arguments of statutory interpretations and charter principles. Are you convinced that you are on sound ground saying that this is something that you can bargain at the table? And specifically, if the issue is too murky and not clear enough for the government to pursue, given that they say that there's a charter challenge to it, do you have an opportunity to essentially challenge that?
So we have seen precedents of this across the country. In Canada, we know most recently Quebec and Ontario have secured tentative agreements with their provinces and their ministries of education that do address class complexity or class size, more class complexity more recently. New Brunswick is one earlier in the year, as well as other provinces who have already addressed this through the negotiations process. We've also seen and experienced here in Saskatchewan why we need to have class complexity and supports in schools included within the negotiations process. Not only are they teachers' working conditions, and we need to ensure that those working conditions improve and students are able to be successful in schools, but we have seen where government has negotiated a salary increase and then not funded that salary increase, leaving divisions on the hook and with no additional funds because school boards now can't change their municipal tax levy, which means that it's an unfunded increase. So divisions essentially were left with the opportunity to either take from their school division reserves, which not all school divisions have reserves, and now many of them have been depleted to nothing over the last several years, or to cut supports. So we want to ensure that that teachers' working conditions do not suffer as government continues to erode public education funding. We want to ensure that funding meets and exceeds enrollment, that it meets and exceeds inflation to ensure students can be well supported.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Hannah?
Thanks. What can parents expect if this isn't successful in getting the government to come to the table on class complexity? What can parents expect to be the next steps that you might take?
Well, at this point, we don't have a specific action that we're planning on taking. We're looking at all possible options of what the next steps might be. I want to avoid those next steps, and I assume other parents across the province want to avoid those steps too. So we would encourage parents to contact their MLA, contact the Minister of Education, contact the Premier, let them know that they need to renew their mandate, get back to the table, and make long-term commitments to ensure that the experiences of students in all areas of the province improve. I know we have seen a couple of pilot projects announced by the ministry this week. It could be as simple potentially as making a commitment to expand those projects so that they support all classes across Saskatchewan, or all teachers across Saskatchewan and all students, so that they can have a better experience in their public education.
So right now you wouldn't be saying if there could be more strikes coming.
Well, there could be, but like I said, our goal is to get an agreement. We're not announcing anything further beyond the 1 day at this time. We're hopeful that that is enough to move the government off of their position. We're hoping we can even avoid that. If government comes back to the bargaining table with a renewed mandate, we would be happy to return to the table. And I have said to the minister himself, we will go back morning, night, weekends. We will go and have those conversations anytime they are willing to, at any point, discuss class complexity and making commitments to teachers.
Thank you.
Thanks. Aishwara?
Just wanted to ask how the strike's going to affect teachers.
Well, teachers will obviously not report to work on January 16th, assuming, again, if government doesn't return to the bargaining table. And so they will report to different areas, depending on where they are within the province. There are plans in each of our local associations. And teachers will be standing together and showing government that we're serious about seeing improvements for students in our schools.
Thank you.
Thanks. Laura?
Sam, Laura has a question in the chat that she said she didn't have access to a microphone.
Okay. So if you can't see the chat, so what is your message to parents who are going to have to pull their kids out of school for the day and possibly scramble to take a day off work? Absolutely, it is unfortunate that we have gotten to this point. As I said, we have been trying to avoid this for the last 7 months, essentially, since May of last year. We have been providing government with every opportunity to come to the table and to make an agreement. And I think that parents stand with teachers in that they want what is best for kids, and that's what teachers are fighting for. So while I know it can create challenges for parents, that is why we provided a little bit of additional notice beyond the required or legislated 48 hours notice. But we are hopeful that teachers and parents and students are standing together and letting this government know that we need to see improvements to classrooms all across the province. Julia?
Yes, I think someone already asked the same question, but just going forward, is there are there any plans put in place for teachers and for students especially for the days that they're going to be off, or for the day that they're going to be off, potentially days depending on how the 16th goes? Do the school boards have any plans at this point?
Not as far as I'm aware. That would be a question that I would encourage you to direct to the Saskatchewan School Boards Association or local school boards specifically. They might have a plan in the event of potential sanction. But as I said, we are providing additional notice that isn't required. They do have time to make plans for Tuesday next week. But like I said, they as well should be encouraging government to get back to the table with a renewed mandate. School boards and school divisions should want to see more supports for our students. And so they should be saying the exact same things that teachers are saying, that we need to see a longer term commitment. One-time funding is not as beneficial as we would expect, because then we're hiring for positions that might not be there in future years. So they should have the same concerns that we do. And if they don't, I wonder why, because we're fighting for kids and we're fighting for supports for kids.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So Laura, I see another question there in the chat, wondering why a full-scale walkout as opposed to escalating action. So this is a strategy that we have taken. We want government to know that teachers are serious about this. We have also heard from many people across the province about the uncertainty around other conditions, whether we're escalating with a work to rule or withdrawal of voluntary services. We wanted to have government know that we are serious about this, that we need to see improvements now. And we didn't want this to escalate and draw on for a long period of time. We want to get back to the table. We want to come to an agreement, and we want to avoid a long-term escalation. Josh? Josh Lynn from CTV.
Josh, you seem to be having mic problems. Maybe you could go to the bottom left corner. There's a little up arrow by the mic there and click that and maybe select a different microphone if something's going on there.
Well, I see Josh has added a question into the chat as well. So changes to address class size and complexity could come with a significant price tag. Is there much sense, or is there any sense of how much this might be responsible for the reluctance to talk about these issues? Government has the ability to fund public education. There shouldn't be a question about that. When you look at the Premier's Twitter feed, it is talking about how great Saskatchewan is and the prosperity in the province and how we are leading the country in the economy and our growth in our economy. We have $1 billion that they've allocated towards debt repayment. And we have also clearly stated to them that this $400 million gap to education due to years, really a decade of underfunding that has left increases below the rate of enrollment and the rates of inflation have created this gap. So we need to see improvements. We know that it's not going to all happen in 1 year, which is why we need to see a longer term commitment. And like I said, investment in public education is the best investment that we can be making in this province. They need to start making kids a higher priority on their list. They have the ability to fund it. It is their responsibility to fund public education. And as a parent, as a teacher, they need to start doing it now. Camille?
Hi, Samantha. So I will ask Angela Banda, please, to answer in French. Sorry for that.
That's okay, no problem. My apologies for my lack of
No
French.
problem.
Bonjour Camille.
Bonjour Angela. J'aimerais s'il vous plaît que vous répétiez donc ce que la STF prévoit pour le 16 janvier prochain.
Le 16 janvier prochain sera une journée de grève pour tous les membres de la Fédération des enseignantes de la Saskatchewan. C'est-à-dire que tous les enseignants, enseignantes et d'autres membres, c'est-à-dire direction d'école, conseillers, etc., ne vont pas du tout à l'école, du tout. Pour toute la journée, il n'y aura aucun enseignement ni service volontaire le 16 janvier.
Et aucune autre action n'est prévue, c'est bien ça?
Oui, c'est bien ça pour toute la journée, une journée.
Juste dernière question, pour préciser, les négociations, elles portent sur le salaire et aussi sur les classes. Donc, je comprends complexity class. Est-ce que vous pourriez donc élaborer là-dessus, s'il vous plaît?
Ben, les négociations sont à propos de plusieurs choses, mais bien sûr, les deux premières propositions selon les enseignants, c'est les conditions en salle de classe. Autrement dit, la complexité qui augmente dans les salles de classe et bien sûr le salaire. Alors, à table, il y avait un refus absolu d'entrer en négociation. Alors, après, tout le processus de négociation est ensuite suivi par, excusez-moi, le processus d'une conciliation qui a failli. On se trouve dans une position où, comme la conciliatrice a bien mentionné, aucun choix. Alors, les enseignants continuent à se battre pour nos salles de classe, les conditions dans nos salles de classe, qui sont en effet les conditions d'apprentissage pour nos élèves. Et on se trouve dans la situation où il n'y a pas de choix. Alors, le 16 janvier, c'est le commencement. On ne peut pas dire ce qui va arriver après le 16 janvier, mais pour commencer à mettre de la pression, en espérant que le public aussi mette de la pression sur le gouvernement de retourner à table pour trouver des solutions ensemble à propos de nos conditions en salle de classe.
Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Je vous en prie, Camille.
Merci. I embarrassed myself last time attempting to say something in French, so that's where I'll leave it. But I appreciate the support from our Associate Executive Director, Angela Banda. Hannah?
Yeah, just a quick follow-up. Will teachers be walking picket lines on Tuesday?
As I said, there are different plans across the province. That could be one of the plans. So more information on the specific actions will come in the days ahead. But we are, like I said, hopeful at this point that government can start taking this process seriously, provide a new mandate to their bargaining team, and get back to the table where we don't have to see teachers on strike.
Thank you.
I also just saw another question from Laura in the chat. Are teachers' salaries also a big sticking point? The education minister has said that the ministry and the STF are very far apart on salary negotiations as well. We have discussed salary negotiations. The position of the GTBC during conciliation was that it was best to leave salary negotiations until the end, until other items had been addressed. So we actually haven't, other than providing our rationale and providing our position. We haven't had significant discussions around salary. We, as we have said, teachers have always been willing to negotiate in good faith. We are willing to have that back and forth, and we're willing to move off of those opening positions. And we provided other opportunities to do that with salary at conciliation. It wasn't our expectation that we would leave that to the end. And so I wouldn't say it is a big sticking point at this time because we haven't really engaged in those conversations, although government putting their salary proposal up on billboards across the province shows that they might be more firm in their position and unwilling to engage in real negotiations. Okay, so not seeing any other hands up. Again, just wanting to say thank you to everyone who is joining us today. Again, as well, thank you to teachers and parents and students across the province who are managing a really difficult situation. We recognize that negotiations is never a comfortable process for anyone, but again, want to thank parents and students for the support that they're showing to teachers, because as I said, teachers are in a fight to ensure that students are getting the supports that they need in schools. I know many parents across the province have already joined with teachers, and we look forward to your support in the days ahead.